Welcome. I am Ricky Berger, joined by David Halprin's Shihan, my sensei, and this is Aikido Perspectives. You look at
bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum,
I know.
bum,
We still need to get a theme. We will get a theme. So today, Sensei, we have decided to talk about a couple of pages from The Art of Peace by Morihei Ueshiba.
Yes, we've been reading about Aikido. Always a dangerous thing to do.
So we've come upon page 8 through 9, which is the introduction to the book. And we had some passages that we wanted to just read and then talk about.
We're talking about what's called the Little Yellow Book, right?
Yes, the Little Yellow Book, The Art of Peace by Morihei Ueshiba,
right.
Translated by John Stevens.
Right.
So, starting with a quote from O-Sensei, Morihei Ueshiba, on page 8, and I quote, "The way of the warrior has been misunderstood as a means to kill and destroy others. Those who seek competition are making a grave mistake. To smash, injure, or destroy is the worst sin a human being can commit. The real way of a warrior is to prevent slaughter. It is the art of peace, the power of love." So, Sensei, how do we approach that while we're doing a martial art?
Well, you mean technically in terms of practice? So, I think the idea is that we're trying to develop a way to do techniques at full power without hurting anyone. So, in terms of practice, Aikido practice is fundamentally cooperative, and you never get into the mindset of your partner being an adversary. Now, sometimes, as we know in life, like in Aikido, sometimes you start to think the other person is an adversary.
Right.
But he's saying, you got to be, you can't injure other people. That's not martial arts. It's really the power, he says, to prevent slaughter, right? So it's changing the whole context of life into a more cooperative mode.
So, sort of in my mind, and again, as I always say, as a beginner, because that's what I am, as I compare this to other martial arts, what's really interesting about Aikido, and I'd ask you to comment on it more, is that we don't go into a technique working together thinking, oh, I'm really going to hurt him, this is going to be great. It's more like, I'm going to give as much energy as I possibly can give, and then not get hurt when the technique is performed on
when I receive as much energy as I can possibly give.
Right, because it's
or let be applied to me.
Because it's safe and fun, but really powerful whether you're giving or receiving.
Right.
Okay. What's so interesting is the mindset of that is so different than other martial arts that I practiced or honestly have been practiced upon me.
Right.
And it's brilliant. It's an amazingly different way counterintuitive way to look at here's how to practice martial arts.
Right. It's totally counterintuitive, and it totally is. I really think it's fair to say that in making that kind of message the central thing of Aikido, a martial art, it really changes the whole. He's like reframing everything.
Right.
So I think if you're involved in martial arts, you encounter an idea like that, I think you got to seriously consider what the implications are, regardless of what martial art you practice.
And so part of what you're saying, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that O-Sensei not only reframed how we practice on the tatami, how we practice when we do martial arts together, but he was attempting to reframe how we look at each other as human beings in society and how we interact individually and collectively.
Right.
That's
basically we should be doing the smartest thing, which is get along.
Right.
Love each other,
right.
if you will.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to love them. You just have to have regard with them.
Right.
Have regard for them.
Yeah, just do me a favor, don't slaughter them.
It's like the like injuring a human being that's like really bad. It's like the thing of fighting. You get into a fight. If you hurt the other guy, you feel bad. If he hurts you, you feel bad.
Right.
And so like either way, you're going to feel bad.
Yeah, that's that whole. God forbid you end up in a fight, and you've talked to me about this in the past, that you can't win in a fight because even if you won, you hurt somebody, and you feel bad because you hurt somebody, and if you lost, you feel bad because you lost.
Right.
So in this introduction,
but on the other hand, it's also important, which was I think a big part of Kanai Sensei's message, that this cooperative element not be misunderstood. Martial arts has a very hard edge in a certain way. So
what did Kanai say? What did Kanai Sensei say about that edge?
Well, we should look at what he said. I don't think I can just say it, but I think that I think that he thought that in general Aikido discourse was over invested with all this cooperation and harmony stuff,
right? And
that people weren't even understanding what cooperation and harmony are in the context of martial arts. Okay. So it led to a technical. It led to technical issues with the way the art was practiced. But that's a different subject. That's the subject of the interaction between the words we use to describe Aikido and the actual practice itself.
Does that have anything to do with the sort of notion of giving in versus just being appropriate? That you do an appropriate thing. You're not giving in. You're just
right.
You're doing the right thing whatever the right thing is in the instant.
Because it is right for you too.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's I think that's what it is, something like that. But that's part of the mystery of Aikido. How exactly would you describe it?
Right. Let me return to the text on page 8. John Stevens makes the following comment. This is again on page 8 of the introduction. Unlike the authors of old-time warrior classics, such as The Art of War and The Book of Five Rings, which accept the inevitability of war and emphasize cunning strategy as a means to victory, Morihei understood and continued fighting with others, with ourselves, and with the environment will ruin the earth.
Yeah, I think that's a great commentary. The environment, the conditions have changed so that, the issue we have today is not how to defeat our, the next country or, some other group. Mm-hmm. It's really an issue of how is everybody going to survive together on this planet?
Right.
And that's really more of the practical issue that's facing everyone now, and that's more how people see it. Martial arts, I think Kanai Sensei says martial arts has a very practical element. Like, for example, on the martial arts technique level, the techniques have to work.
Right.
So they all have to be real.
Mm-hmm.
And because that practicality, contains a certain truth. And so that helps you orient a lot of other things. But it's a very practical part. Martial arts is supposed to be very practical.
Right.
In olden times, maybe in the Middle Ages, the big issues people had were how to keep their neighbors from killing them, basically.
Okay, yep. Mm-hmm.
Now, with the exception of a guy that used to live next to me, our problem is not how to kill the neighbors or being worried that the neighbors are going to kill us. But it's like, how do we get along with our neighbors?
Right.
How do we get along with the people at work? And so I think just like martial arts will give you what you need. When you need to know how to kill people, it will give you that knowledge.
Right.
When you know when it's time that you need to cooperate with people or find some kind of modus operandi with other people, then it will give you that.
Which includes being able to effectively engage them in conflict but in a way that works out correctly, and hopefully in the best sense for everyone involved.
Right. And the idea of correctness, what's correct and what's not correct, is a really important concept in Aikido. Also hard to really describe, but you just mentioned, I think that was a good use of it.
Okay. So to move on in this writing, the next thing is a quote.
Sorry, I want to say one more thing.
Okay, sure.
So, maybe I already said this anyway. Aikido is pushing it so that the martial, here, look at it this way. You would be crazy if you did a cost-benefit analysis of your own life. You would be crazy to spend hours and hours learning martial arts in the current period.
Why? Why is that crazy?
Because, if you're really worried about, you might have to hurt other people and you're doing it for that reason. Like, you could buy a gun, or you could buy a taser, or even buy a knife,
Right.
I mean, any weapon you have, if you're prepared to use it correctly,
right,
will
do the job.
Will do the job. So, and it takes a lot less time with that than it does to do a martial arts seriously.
Right.
So it's, there's no real practical reason to study martial arts from just, if it's only a thing of actually combat.
Right.
That's what I think.
Well, then why should you do it? I mean, why should people go study martial? Why should people study Aikido is the big question.
Well, because Aikido contains a great philosophical truth that people can get a great benefit out of from encountering. And it's also good exercise.
Right. And it's also fun.
And it's fun.
And you get to, from my perspective, you get to hang out with friends. And you get to meet new friends.
Right.
And honestly, Aikido friends tend to be really intelligent and cool to hang out with. And they party very well.
Yep.
That's
part of the Aikido thing.
It's a hell of a party.
Yeah.
And it is great exercise. And it does this thing. I think you mentioned it off mic before. I mean, you just feel really good doing Aikido. It's like this big shiatsu massage. You just feel really warm all over after doing the techniques and doing ukemi, and it just feels good, and it just wipes the aggression out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good relationship you have with your partner most of the times in Aikido. So you're spending an hour having a really good relationship with someone.
Right, yeah.
To the extent that both of you can get your act together.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't depend on, being able to, do things. You just have to keep trying.
It's just showing up and doing the work.
Yeah, just show up.
Just show up and do the work.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the goal is, this is the part that I love, that I'm so poor at, but the part that I love is that a really well-performed technique is in and of itself beautiful.
Right.
It's gracious, it's graceful, and it's beautiful. And, for a lumbering yak such as myself, I don't see it yet, but I know it can arrive. And it's like, just to keep working towards that.
Yeah.
That itself is awesome.
Yeah.
That's a fun thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so let me push on to this. This is a quote from O Sensei. It's on the bottom of page 8
okay,
to the top of page 9. And again, this is Aikido Perspectives, and we're reading from The Art of Peace by Morihei Ueshiba, translated by John Stevens. O Sensei, quote, "The world will continue to change dramatically, but fighting and war can destroy us utterly. What we need now are techniques of harmony, not those of contention. The art of peace is required, not the art of war." End quote.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing he could see so far ahead. I mean, I don't know. I think it might have been in the 40s or something.
I think so. And compiled and translated by John Stevens. This is 1992, but here we are in 2016, and these words could not be more relevant today.
Yeah. Well, I think if you want to talk about the state of the world, I mean, what he foresaw happened, right? Like, people developed nuclear weapons, and a lot of them, and
yep.
Everything was really tense, and it would have been really easy to blow the whole world up over some stupid issue,
right,
with nuclear weapons,
right.
And as soon as one did it, everybody was going to do it,
right.
So, like, at that point, the world, I think, kind of had an insight and started backing off from that kind of war. You just couldn't have that kind of war anymore.
Right.
And yeah, maybe now we have terrorism and local wars. Just, sure, that still goes on, but it feels like those kind of the world like woke up about the foolishness of developing and using weapons like that,
right?
Or developing and not using them.
Mm-hmm.
So just like that, the techniques that it's a different set of techniques you need to deal with the situation. We really can't have total war anymore.
Right. But and Sensei talks about techniques of harmony, as opposed to techniques of contention.
Right.
Which, as I personally look at the presidential election environment, it's like, oh my God.
Let's stay away from that.
Yeah, exactly. It's this whole thing, though, about finding ways for us all to appropriately and correctly get along.
Yeah.
It's that,
in a way that has justice, and for all.
Right.
Real justice.
Right. And wisdom associated
and
with
wisdom
it. But,
for all.
And finding ways to listen to each other, even if we significantly disagree on points, but finding our way through that while still honoring, each other.
Right. And ourselves.
And ourselves. But to the extent to which someone crosses a line, we may have to do something that's correct and a little more amplified.
There's always a possibility that, something like that could happen. And fortunately, we'll be well prepared for it if it does. But like in Aikido, you learn how to fight by not fighting, by practicing Aikido.
Right.
You're not actually practicing the things you will do in a fight.
Right.
But somehow it develops abilities that will help you do what's the right thing in the event of a fight or any other situation.
Well, I think one of the things that happens that I watch as you teach us is the significant level of martial awareness in that environment while we're practicing, which, if we were actually in a situation that we would carry that level of awareness to that situation, where I personally haven't seen in other martial arts. And it's very unique, and it's very Aikido based, but it's very acute, that level of awareness. And from what I see, it's like it's meant to understand what's happening so you can get through it in harmony.
Well, I don't think martial awareness is any different from any kind of awareness.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Probably the problem for most people is having any awareness. And
I see.
So, like, say you're practicing Aikido in a dojo, you really have to keep track of everybody who's on the mat to some extent, just to avoid collisions. And you have to be very aware of the etiquette that's, of what you're supposed to do. You're trying to improve your ability to see the techniques and copy them, right? So there's a lot going on. And you got to be looking around the dojo to say, what should I be cleaning after class?
Right. It's all of that stuff together.
Right.
And in the middle of practice, it's all of that complicated stuff that's happening at the same time. So we're learning to think about a bunch of stuff at the same time. So if we were in a martial situation, we could process through everything that's happening.
And even more important, your body is being trained to be very strong and resilient and flexible and elastic. And your mind is being trained to be more aware of your surroundings. And
to be relaxed in an environment that otherwise would be very tense.
That's right, to be relaxed no matter what's going on.
And so that according to how this has been developed through O-Sensei and carried on down the line through others, that concept of being relaxed and appropriate and correct in a martial situation, in any other situation in life, is what elevates us and brings Aikido to a position where we can just be more peaceful and find more harmony with everything around us. Is that really what this is about?
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling from words.
No,
yeah.
I mean, the thing is, people have always had about Aikido is that they've reduced it to words too fast without really thinking it through.
Right.
Or maybe learning enough about it or something. So everybody has this problem of, it's something like that, but it's also, there's also part of Aikido. It's just kind of a mystery because, Aikido doesn't collapse back into everything else. And so you got to keep figuring out how not to reduce it to the terms in which you formerly thought.
So sort of from an existentialist perspective, we have to get bigger. We have to think about it in bigger terms that we otherwise may have sort of thought about everything.
Right.
That makes sense.
Something like that.
Right.
I'm saying right, but I really don't know. But I think it's something like that.
Well, yeah, we're taking these 2 pages. We're discussing it to the extent that we can.
Right.
And I'm asking you as my sensei what you think.
Right.
And then when we're stuck,
and I'm shooting my mouth off.
Right. Yeah. And then when we're stuck, and that's fine.
Morihei taught the art of peace as a creative mind-body discipline.
Yes.
But I didn't hear that part, the mind-body discipline. Okay. Let's start there.
Now, so one of the most important things that you learn in the dojo, and I'll repeat now, I am sorry, Sensei. Morihei taught the art of peace as a creative mind-body discipline, as a practical means of handling aggression, and as a way of life that fosters fearlessness, wisdom, love, and friendship. I am sorry. I should have read that.
Yeah.
Because that's
a great line.
It is a great
line.
observation. So when we talk about handling aggression, right, it's the aggression that's coming towards us, but also the aggression within us, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. In fact, the aggression within us is probably a bigger problem than the aggression without us.
Well, for me it is.
I think for most people it is really. Or let's put it this way: the thing that the source of people's problems is internal; it's not external.
Right.
And martial arts has always been this way to train your mind, body, and spirit to get you through a situation like that.
So it's an inside job. The whole thing's an inside job.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, I just want to always reduce my aggression and reduce that sort of that natural brute instinct to be brutish. Because I feel better when I'm less. I feel better when I have less of that.
Yeah, well, I think you do. Well, just because like you're taking control of your, maybe first level instinctive reactions to things.
Right. But what's interesting is that the next part of the sentence is, and as a way of life that fosters fearlessness,
right,
wisdom, love, and friendship.
Yeah, that's the funny part about it. That in this way of studying love and friendship, you also develop fearlessness.
I know. Is that crazy?
It's really crazy. And it's really cool.
Yep.
Because it's kind of the truth. So, the fearlessness just shows up. Like you don't have to puff yourself up and be all macho or anything.
I had an epiphany, which I haven't shared with you, but I will now. So, in the dojo, one of my friends throws me really harder than anyone else does, and he loves doing it, and then always makes fun of me. But it doesn't.
You have nice friends.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But I realized something. He doesn't scare me because he throws me faster than my fear arrives. Because I don't see it coming, and he somehow knows where my ukemi is, where the edge is.
Well, I think
he's faster than my fear.
No, I don't think that's exactly it.
What is it?
Because all your perceptions should be faster, including your fear.
Including my fear? Then I got to catch up.
So the thing is, I think what you're feeling is that he cares about you. He has some regard for you, that he's not going to just use you as cannon fodder.
Oh. So I'm not... He's not faster than my fear. I'm comfortable.
You're more comfortable.
Oh.
And so you experience less fear.
Oh, that's cool. And that's the love and friendship part.
Yeah. And the funny
part... Well, he's throwing me hard.
Funny part is that, by doing that, you're getting trained in fearlessness.
Right. He's actually not throwing me hard because he giggles afterwards.
Yeah, no. I mean, practice is supposed to be under control, right?
Right. So,
but you can do the techniques different ways, and Aikido says the way you should do it is in a way where you have some consideration. There's another person involved in this,
right? Because we're not supposed to break our friends,
right? And also, it's a practical matter. You have less people to practice with,
right? But this is the whole thing of all of Aikido, is that like having this wonderful regard for the people that are in our lives, but also, you know, really going full out if we can.
Right. Right.
Which also, full out can also mean enjoying life to its fullest.
Yeah, full out is, a lot of things. I mean, full out is a term that is another one that you can't just say full out means this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So it's like Aikido in a way. Like some of these terms, it's hard to really precisely. Although I guess we should look at the dictionary sometime and see how they define them. But I know Aikido is something that it's not easy to encompass in normal words and concepts that we use.
I understand. And can I sense I think Roeder spoke a great deal about wisdom and how the concept of getting
Right.
the wisdom to Aikido.
Right.
We should talk about that.
Well, he said the basic purpose of Aikido was to make people wise, to develop wisdom in people.
Right.
But through a hard training and a hard physical training of mind and body.
Right.
So that's one thing that's from his writings.
Mm-hmm. So now I had skipped on to this other.
Okay, so now let's say we finished that discussion, right?
Okay.
Now the last passage I want you to read is cross out, interpreted in the broadest possible sense, and
Right.
start.
Yes.
O Sensei believed that.
It's principles of reconciliation.
Yeah.
Would you like to read it, Sensei?
No, you read it. And
Harmony, cooperation, and empathy could be applied bravely to all of the challenges we face in life, in personal relationships, as we interact with society, at work and in business, when dealing with nature.
Right.
Everyone can be a warrior for peace.
Yeah, cut that out. That's a cliche.
Okay.
See, that's a really good thing, of the kind of thing I want to get rid of. It's just a cliche. It's like that keeps people from. I mean, what we just everything before that is a much more nuanced, textured description.
Okay.
And then they say, "Oh, we're warrior of peace." It's like, don't be so sloppy as to go around like thinking, "Oh, I'm a warrior of peace." Like that's
you're on mic, right?
Well, we can edit it though, but
I'll do a bleep.
People are supposed to be wise, not simple-minded.
Right. So what you're saying to me emphatically is Aikido doesn't fit into cliches or slogans.
Exactly.
Okay. I understand. Wow, that came out of nowhere. We really hit something there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Aikido Perspectives.
Boing.
So, what I love in this is it really draws it together that in doing Aikido, this helps build our ability to have better personal relationships, to do better as we interact with society, to do better in our relationships at work and business. And I never thought about this before, but to do better in our dealings with nature.
Right.
I never thought of that before, and I didn't know that O-Sensei thought of that.
Oh, yeah. Well, O-Sensei was very influenced by Shinto, which is, I think, a kind of nature worship, like God is expressed through nature.
Okay.
Or God expresses itself through nature. There's another idea, too, though, that's important, which is it's a way to better get along with yourself. Did we cover that?
I think that always sort of bears repeating.
Yeah, I think you always got to add that because, again, it's all great to get along with everybody else, but fundamentally the way you do that is by figuring out how to get along with yourself, or
right.
I don't know what that means either, but come
that's
to terms with yourself in some way.
I think that's the hardest one.
Yeah, probably.
That probably takes the most practice. Is that? I mean, I think we've discussed this in other podcasts, but I think this is going to bear repeating through many discussions with probably many people. Is how broad the application of Aikido is to everything in our lives, and I mean, I use it in business all the time,
right?
And I mean, I know that you and I have had discussions about lots of things in our lives where we're really talking about the application of Aikido in those relationships, or when I'm asking you advice about something in my life, we're really talking about Aikido, about how to handle it in a way that's appropriate, which really means a lot of times in Aikido, even if you're in conflict with somebody or an organization, it's how do you do it in a loving way? How do you do the correct thing, but in a loving way, meant to, in the most succinct manner, do what needs to be done while inflicting no harm or the least amount of harm.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And it's hard, but
It's
it's
hard.
cool. If you just think about things like that, like business deals that I have in front of me, if I think about how to get to the business deal, but I apply Aikido perspectives to it, it always works out better. It may not be the deal I want, but it always works out better because the other side feels like they're being treated well, even if we're in conflict. Happy, happy, happy.
Well, that's ideal when you as an outcome of a negotiation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are people that think this will be a bunch of, boulder dash because, I'm sure many people in business do it on the basis that the name of the game is to get as much money out of it or whatever their goals are, and the effect on other people isn't of that great consequence.
Well, I mean, I spent years as an attorney and as a negotiator and teaching negotiation. And one thing that I know is that if you're in a negotiation that you'll never deal with the parties again, you can have a license to treat them abusively to try to get the way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But the fact is that may not be what gets you to the best, even if you're never going to see them again. That may not be what's going to get you the best number. That may not be what's going to get you the next deal. It might be, but I can still do that without abusing them. And I have techniques that I use to do that, honestly, by using humor with forcefulness that makes them like me, but also understand we need to get to, I don't want to deal with Ricky. This could be bad.
So you
but they like me.
You waterboard them, but tell them jokes while you're doing it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I do things. There are things that I do, like my pig joke. My pig joke. I use my pig joke all the time. Where I when I sent them a 20-page demand letter, so they feel the force, but we're joking on the phone, and then I say, look, there's only two things happen when you wrestle with a pig. One is that you get exceedingly dirty, and two, the pig really likes it. I'm a pig. We shouldn't do that. Then they laugh, but they realize Ricky's crazy. Right. He just sent a 20-page demand letter, and maybe we need to settle this.
Right.
And then we start finding common ground, and I'm not yelling and screaming.
Right. Well, that's
and we get into a nice place and settle.
That's good Aikido.
That's what I think. I try.
I mean, I think the problem people have is that perhaps for most people, if they're going to see the people again, it hits their consciousness that they should, take more account of them.
Right.
Whereas if it's someone you're never going to see again, I think for many people it doesn't hit their radar screen.
But it should.
It should. I think maybe they'd get better outcomes if it did.
I did a deal where I ended up fighting a billionaire guy who's an oil guy in Texas. And he called me on it wasn't a big deal, but I just ended up negotiating with this billionaire guy in Texas. Nice guy, won't mention his name. And he called and yelled at me for about an hour. And then we did stuff with each other for a couple days. But in the end, we decided to settle because we did, honestly, there was good techniques on both sides. There was good waza. He performed good techniques on me. I performed good techniques on him. But in the end, he said to me, Ricky, I really like you. And I'm like, I like you too. And I mentioned his name. And it ended up with, like, anytime he comes to Boston, I'm going to buy him dinner. Because I really like this guy. And it doesn't matter that he's a billionaire. I just really like this guy. And it's great we settled it. But what's also really great is we walked out of it after fighting with each other, because we were fighting, with a relationship. And you know what? What's better than that?
Really? It's the truth.
So, and I hope that's Aikido, because
I think that's Aikido. Why don't you read this last bit? So, like just say, "Oh, Sensei believed that the principles of conciliation, etc., all the way to."
Okay.
Did we do that?
Yeah, we did that.
Did we do it all the way down when dealing with
nature?
nature?
Because then you decided you did not like the phrase "everyone can be a warrior for peace."
Yeah. Okay, so we read everything down to there.
Yeah, we've gone through.
All right, we're good.
Let's see. Hold on. Let me turn around and see where we are. We are 36 minutes into this. This was. Do you have anything you want to add, or
I need a drink.
Huh?
I need a drink.
I can help you with that. So, but before I do that, let me just say that I am Ricky Berger, and I've been joined by David Halpern Shihan, my sensei, and this was Aikido Perspectives.
Doing, doing, doing.
That reminds us we need a theme. Thank you, sensei, and good evening and good night to everyone.